Welcome to Stitchery Stories, where textile artists share their life in fabric and thread, inspiration, techniques, disasters and delights. And I'm Susan Reeks, enthusiastic embroiderer and textile art dabbler who also loves podcasting. So take a break and enjoy our light-hearted chat, and please share with your friends so they can enjoy it too. Hello and welcome today to our lovely guest, Claire Mort. Hi Claire.
Hi Susan.
It's lovely to speak to you today. We've just been having a bit of a laugh about our chairs, haven't we? Our office chairs. The things we talk about before I actually hit record. Oh, you'd all be dying to know what those are. And I'm now just waffling on because I'm trying to find Claire's bio. Oh, here we are. Right, there we are. Right, so Claire is an award-winning British textile artist, and her work is held in collections in Europe, Australia and the USA. She won the Marshwood Arts Awards and John Hubbard Prize 2019. Claire won the Applied Arts Award chosen by ceramicist Kate Malone, MBE, and Kate said of Claire's work, "The sense of colour is dazzling and the content is both amusing and emotionally engaging." That's a lovely thing to say, isn't it? She was finalist in the 2019 National Needlecraft Awards, and Claire is actually a columnist for Be Creative With Workbox magazine, and she hosts a very witty column called Morts Thoughts, exhibiting work locally and nationally, with exhibitions in London, including at the Clerkenwell Gallery as part of the Society for Embroidered Work International Contemporary Stitched Art Exhibition. I should have had a breath before I said that. Her work is about the world around her and her experiences thus far. So from social media and the changes in the world and people since she was a little girl, to the #MeToo movement, 100 years of suffrage, advertising, typography, and everything in between. Her work, although mainly female, is not a feminist statement necessarily, as even though she has read and read and read, she is still not really sure she or anyone else really knows what that is. For Claire, she just wants to be treated fairly and with respect, and she guesses that's what most of us really want, no matter what gender we are. However, she is female, and how she experiences the world influences her work. She is a very proud member of SEW, the Society for Embroidered Work, and the aim of SEW is to promote and support artists who have an element of stitching in their artworks, hand or machine, and traditional or contemporary forms of embroidery. And she's also a member of the Embroiderers Guild. So, Claire, welcome. That's really, really an interesting bio. So I'm sure we're going to have lots to talk about, and I'll be watching the clock so we don't talk all day. Right. So, links. So the best places to find Claire is on her website, which is clairemortartist.com. She's on Instagram at clairemortartist, and she's on Redbubble as Claire Mort Arty, ending in a Y, because they won't let her have the whole word of artist. So there we are. And of course, Claire's links and some examples of her work will also be on her episode on stitcherystories.com as well as anywhere else where I can think to share it. Right then, that's all of that sorted out. So once again, Claire, welcome. And here we are, another lockdown edition of Stitchery Stories. So do you want to share with us what you're working on and what's got you excited?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited. This is exciting. I've just completed, or I'm completing, a piece of work about suffragettes and suffragists, Emily Davison and Millicent Fawcett. Ooh. So I've done 2 target pieces, which is about, I guess, women being a target and them being a target. Yeah. And how lucky we are to have got the vote, but how that conversation still continues. And I'm putting them onto a bra, and it's going to have the text of "Courage calls to courage everywhere," which is a quote by Millicent Fawcett. Yeah. But it's been a bit of a nightmare doing it because I tried to stitch it directly onto a bra, and that's a lot harder than you think.
Did the kind of stuffing stuff keep coming up through the fabric?
Oh, it's an absolute nightmare. When I was stitching, it just kept, the stitch sank into the stuffing, and I was like, where's my stitches gone? And why does Millicent look like she's had an accident? So I had to do them separately on pieces of linen, and then attach them separately. So it's been a really, really challenging piece. And most of the way through it, I was like, it's rubbish. I can't do it. It's too difficult. But I'm now on the homeward stretch, and it looks okay.
So lesson learned: stitching on bras is not as easy as what one would imagine. Right?
I wouldn't advise it. I wouldn't advise it. It's an absolute nightmare.
I'll remember that. I don't think I'll be tempted to do it, but I will remember.
I'm thinking of doing a series on bras. I think I've got a lot to say about the ladies in that, because it's kind of like you had the burning of the bras and stuff. But
yes.
I think it can be seen in so many different ways. Sort of, it's like a containment, really. There's not a woman in the land, I think, who doesn't get home from work and go, I just take my bra off and put my pajamas on. So I think it would be a nice series of work. The Boob Project, I think I'll call it.
Actually, do you know what? That sounds like actually a really interesting series, though, using bras as a mechanism to talk about a number of issues. So, yeah. Okay, so have you got any other ideas in there other than it's just you started thinking about doing it?
I think I'm doing a series at the moment called Project Woman, which is going to take up most of my life, I think, which is just about kind of extraordinary women since the beginning of time, and female artists, and how they've been painted out of art history, and just incredible women of our time. And it's but it's kind of, how do you vocalize that and kind of make it more powerful? And I guess possibly putting them onto bras and having a whole exhibition of, like Madonna with her Jean-Paul Gaultier bra.
Yes.
I could do a bit of that.
Yeah.
I won't be wearing them or modelling them, though, because that would not be a good look. But it's the Project Woman stuff's exciting. I love it. And all of the time I'm learning about women that I'd never even heard of that are just incredible. And you'd be amazed how, and I'm not a feminist, but kind of how many women have just been erased from history. And you only find them if you really, really look for them, or somebody tells you. So I think it's important to tell those stories, not from a feminist point of view, just to balance it so that people know, and children know, that women are as amazing as men.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And there's a Facebook page called something like The Mighty Girl or something like that, and they share, I haven't seen any for a while, but they share that sort of thing, brilliant stories about ladies that you've never heard about, and the amazing things that they've done. And it is something that, don't set me off, for God's sake. I'll be here all day. Even 30 years ago, when I started my professional career as a mainframe computer programmer in the Nissan car factory, in a male-dominated factory, in a male-dominated environment, I was not at all prepared for the levels of discrimination. It was discrimination that I experienced that I never ever expected to come across, just because I was female. That was it. And
I think that still goes on. And I think those conversations, the hashtag Me Too movement, all of it, and they're conversations that need to be had, but from a place of strength and balance, and a place, not a place of, you're bad because you're a man and us women are rah, rah, rah. It's about, we're the same. We all want the same goal.
You don't treat anybody like I was treated. Why was it's just ridiculous. And, still now. And in fact, I was just rummaging through, looking at some of my YouTube things. And this lady left a comment on a YouTube video I did 3 years ago, my first Facebook Live ever. And there I was having this quite powerful comment about all of this. So, and she goes, oh, wow, that's really inspiring. I thought, oh, yeah, so I'm going to dig it out and put it on my, dig it back out again. Because I was quite impressed with myself, actually, with that one. Anyway, we digress. So, right, so I don't think you're going to run out of inspiration there, are you, Claire?
No, it's endless. And there are so many incredible women since the beginning of time. It's just, and it's amazing to learn about people and share it.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Ooh, we'll have to keep our eyes out for more of those then. Brilliant. And right, well, I've got to ask, how has all of this virus shutdown, has that affected you in any way, if at all?
When it began, before we were in lockdown, I was like, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure everything will be fine. We'll just all carry on about our business. And actually, when it really started to ramp up and we went into lockdown, I have to be really honest, I was frightened and anxious, and I just couldn't create at all. My creative brain climbed in a box, left the building and went, I'm out. So you're going to have to just deal with basic things like cooking and managing. And about 3 days ago, my creative brain popped back in and went, oh, hiya, I see you're a bit more chilled out. Should we make something?
Oh, that's good.
And I was like, oh, hello to you. Come back in.
Yay.
But I have to say I was quite fed up at the beginning, but now I'm in a much better place of acceptance around it. It's very sad that all of my exhibitions have been cancelled.
Ah, right. Yes, I was wondering, what if any kind of work impact had been
completely gone.
Right.
Everything that I planned for the next 12 months gone.
Yeah.
Absolutely no exhibitions. No, just nothing. No art weeks, nothing. So I'm having to completely reassess how I work, how I put my work out there, and how I live. And I know lots and lots of other artists are doing the same thing. And it's a huge challenge because you're having to think outside the box all of the time, and also create your work. It's I think for creative people, that's not their favourite place to be, logistics.
No. Just
want to be making, and then the putting your work out there, you want that to be as simple as possible. And it isn't. It's stressful, but it's an interesting challenge, and it's a reminder to all of us. I think that I will have so much gratitude when we're allowed out, but also to not be so reliant on other things. It's about maybe being a bit more self-reliant and finding a different way that's more sustainable of producing your work and getting it to where it needs to be. And also, we're lucky. We've got the internet, thank God for that. But
totally.
But it's definitely difficult, and I'm not loving it.
Yeah, I was going to say those two creative processes, and they are both creative processes, that of creating your artistic work and thinking about how you're going to change and manage your business. Although they're both creative, they are totally different. And I can imagine that being very difficult to manage, those utterly separate thought processes. They're not the same kind of creativity.
No.
Does that make sense? I mean, I've been going through not similar things. I've changing my focus, not because of this. This has been a long time coming as my kind of change in focus, and really basically, well, I'll say here now, I'm putting this podcast more to the fore with my activities and doing less of some of the other things. So you're all going to be hearing more of me anyway. But it's not easy. I've been working for several months on what I can do and different things I can do and all the rest of it, without having the added layer of creating artistic work for sale and to generate money. I mean, I rarely pick up a needle these days, but that's a different story. But when I do, it's my pleasure. It's not something that I'm doing for a business as well. So yeah, I was quite intrigued as to where artists in general are with this, and where, what the impacts are going to be. I know there's other people, one of my other guests, Jane Sanders, her exhibitions in lockdown, it's been on the go for a couple of weeks, and then the exhibition venues, the theatres, being closed, so all her stuff's now locked away in this place, so she can't even get it back at the moment. There'll be lots of other people who've got exhibitions in lockdown as well, won't they? So it's difficult whichever way you go, I think.
I had the shortest exhibition in history, I think. I took it down, I think, on the Monday, and by the Thursday I had it back. Because they were, they were going to go ahead and do all the stuff. They're a brand new business. It was a very exciting gallery. They 3 days later they got locked down.
Yeah. Oh.
But I think everybody is trying to embrace the challenge and trying to find a different way. And also, some people have got customers that are willing to wait.
Yes.
So,
yes.
if they can get to a post office, that process might be a bit more longer. It might be, it might take a month for someone to get their purchase, but some people are willing to wait for that. But it's definitely interesting times.
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, we'll move on from there, because I know we've got a lot of other things to talk about. So do you want to just give us a quick insight into how you got interested in, or how you got started on with your embroidery and textile art and kind of made it into a business? And then I would quite like to ask you a couple of questions about your column as well, because I find that very interesting.
How did I begin? I grew up with pretty strong women who made stuff. My mum was an excellent knitter. And I had an amazing friend who was elderly called Mary, an Irish woman who was incredibly creative and could knit things that would just blow your mind. And I started doing textiles when I was about 19. I'd done it prior to that, little bits, but I started embroidering when I was 19. And then I went off to college and didn't do embroidery. I ended up doing fine art and graphic design. And then my son, and he was really ill. He went into hospital a lot. So it was very difficult being creative and working for myself when I'm going into hospital with my son all the time.
Yes.
And I needed a portable piece of work. And then I went back to stitching and gave up my job as a graphic designer, and I've been stitching ever since. And I love it. And I wanted to have a means of expressing what was in my head verbally. So I did a few pop art pieces with text on them, some of it sweary, but just kind of expressing that stuff, and also kind of being female and, embroidery allegedly being a female art form or a domestic work.
Yes.
It's not. It's such a powerful tool, and for me, it's given me my life back. It's incredible. I was so unhappy doing graphics, and it's like the serendipity of being in hospital with my son and just kind of having this amazing thing that you can just take with you and just work on all the time. It's fantastic. I love it. It's very exciting. I get very excited when I talk about Stitch.
Yay! And it's interesting you're saying that actually you went and did, graphic design and so on, because yes, your pieces and the pieces I've seen have that very strong graphic element to them. They are quite unique in the way in which they look as well. So yeah, I can see that background coming through very strongly there.
It's definitely influenced what I do, and I think before I was like, oh, I wish I'd gone to the Royal School of Needlework and done a degree in embroidery, and who knows, I'm not dead, so I might go and do that one day. But it's it has definitely informed my work, but it's also given me the tools to be able to navigate the online stuff, to build my own website. So it was double-edged, and I think you get there when you get there. And it's, I seem to have found my feet and happiness in what I'm doing now. And I think people can worry about, I'm doing a crap job, or I don't want to do what I'm doing, my life's miserable, whatever. And I just think sometimes opportunities come from the most extraordinary places and extraordinary situations, and then you can end up taking a path that you didn't even imagine that you would be doing. So
that is so,
trust the process.
Yes, trust the process. That is so true. As I laughingly say, as just said there, I started off, I got a business studies degree, I did techie stuff when I was at university, started off as a mainframe computer programmer in a car factory. And here I am with my podcast, chatting on about fabric and thread and everything in between. So you would have never have thought that at all, would you?
No.
You wouldn't. So yeah, and so many guests have had that same epiphany, really, of like, what I was doing is just like, and stuff it. and they've gone off and followed the dream of doing something creative, and the medium just happens to be, in this conversation, fabric and thread. But I'm sure that same story is replicated in ceramics and metalwork and jewellery and anything else that people can come up with. Obviously, you've got that background in web and so on. That's an area that I see people kind of struggling with time and time again. And not surprising, because that's a different set of one way which your brain works. Mine, I don't know, I happen to have, for me, they're both creative. I am a very, very technical person, but I do do my embroidery as well. So that took me a long time to be able to wonder where those two things came from. But they are both actually very creative things. So, maybe I'm more creative than what I think.
Definitely.
And it's really nice, actually, that you have your column as well. I think lots of people like reading that as well, and you come up with all sorts of things in there for us all to read and pause for thought around too. So is that the writing side of things? How's that developed? Have you been did that come from blogging, or did you start out of the blue?
Serendipity, absolute bonkers stuff. Yeah, I think Be Creative reached out for artists to be in their pop-up gallery.
Right.
And I messaged them, and they messaged me. I think they'd gone and checked out my Instagram. And they said, "We think you're really funny. Would you like to have a go at writing a column?"
How fabulous.
And I was like, I can't write for toffee. I think you've made a terrible mistake. And they were like, "You remind us of Miranda off the telly." And I was like, okay. And I was like, this is my real life. So I ended up just giving them random thoughts about stuff. And they're so lovely, and I'm so lucky, and it is so exciting, and I can't believe it. And every time I get my copy and I read it, and I'm like, oh, I wrote that.
Did I write this? Wow.
I'm always shocked as well, because I forget what I've written.
Yeah.
Because my mind palace is full of a lot of stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember. But it's lovely, and I get lots of private messages on Instagram.
Yeah.
Because I can't be dishonest. I don't want to be a jazz hand, let's pretend everything's fabulous person.
Yes.
I want to tell the truth.
It doesn't serve at all, that, yeah.
And it makes people feel like rubbish. And it's, I find loads of things difficult. I find having my own business difficult. I find running my life around that difficult. I find running my life difficult, to be fair. But and I don't want to fluff it up for people and make out that, like life's a bowl of cherries all the time, because it isn't. And and I want to tell the truth about that, and say that it being a creative, just being alive is challenging sometimes, and that's okay. And when I get messages from people going, "Oh, thank God you've said that," and it's like, "Oh, my pleasure, people. I told the world, but it's fine." I told everyone about my hysterectomy. I was like, "Oh, my life," but it's it is the truth, and I'd much rather do that so that you're on a level footing with everyone.
Yes.
And being authentic.
Yeah, well,
although I don't like that word.
Well, no, because
done to death.
Being authentic is possibly the most unauthentic comment these days, isn't it? Because it usually means that you're not.
Authentic.
So, I'm really glad I asked that nosy question, because that's fantastic. It's just great, though. Sometimes luck. These things appear, don't they? And it's like, yay.
And they appear, I think, when you're being yourself.
Yes,
and not trying to jazz hand, living the right. Facebook life with a coffee and a croissant, and it's like, oh, come on, please. I'm lucky if I've got my knickers on the right way round. It's that's an achievement in my book. So I think just be who you are, and you'll be amazed at what can happen.
Yeah, so true. So in terms of developing your kind of quite distinctive look, obviously you've got that graphic background. Is there any other kind of standout inspirations in terms of technique and style? Obviously, your subjects, the women who you're working around, as we've already said, are deeply inspiring. Is there anything graphically that you've found inspiring as well, Claire?
I think one of the most incredible things that I ever saw was I went to the Sensation exhibition in London many, many years, probably 20 years ago now. It blew my mind, absolutely blew my mind that anything could be considered art. And there was Tracy Emin, Sarah Lucas, Rachel Whiteread, incredible female artists doing incredible stuff. And I kind of came away from that and I was like, well, that's incredible. Anything's possible. And then I kind of put it in a box for 20 years.
Yeah, forgot about it. Yeah.
I was like, oh yes, I remember. And it's I think I find the act of slow stitch inspiring all by itself.
Yes.
And I think I find the world we live in constantly inspired. It blows my mind. Instagram blows my mind. All the artists on there blow my mind. But the fact that you can even, like, that's a thing. In 20 years ago, 10 years ago, it wasn't a thing. You couldn't see other people's artwork online.
It was so impossible, wasn't it?
But it's mind-blowing.
See what's going on. Yeah.
That's going to be another project of mine. It's my next. I have to have about 10 on the go at a time.
Do I need half an hour for unfinished objects then?
Oh, at least. But I'm going to start a new project about communication.
Right.
Because
brilliant.
I found I've got a pink vintage typewriter that I dug out yesterday, and it's beautiful.
Oh, I like pink.
I love a bit of pink. I had pink hair back in the day, but it's a pink typewriter, and I found I've got an old-fashioned Bakelite telephone, a red one.
Yeah,
and I'm going to do embroideries of that, just kind of documenting the lockdown really, and documenting how important communication is, and how lucky we are.
Yes,
to be able to talk like this, to text people, to go on Instagram to get support, to have a group chat on WhatsApp, which I've just learned how to do. Yeah. I feel like I'm a technical wizard and down with the kids now. But it's so there's loads and loads of exciting stuff. And I think another thing is that I tap into is the cartoons from the 70s and 80s.
Yes.
I love all that. But that informs my work too. It's kind of Jamie and the Magic Torch, fabulous. And
Danger Mouse,
Danger Mouse, whoop, whoop, Finger Mouse. Oh my God. And it's kind of like, I don't even know how they got away with that stuff, but it was Chilton and the Wheelies. I still can't watch that. Terrifying. But the actual imagery is incredible.
The pirate one, that was absolutely...
Oh, Captain Pugwash.
That's it, Captain Pugwash. Oh, dearie me.
And the flumps.
Oh, yes.
I love the flumps. Keep it under your hat, Poodle. She didn't take her hat off because it was a secret. But I love all of that, and the simplicity of how those things were made, hand-drawn cells, just incredible. So I love them. You can have all your technology and it's amazing and it has its place, but there's also a joy in the handmade, the handmade paintings, handmade stitch. It's joyous, all of that. So for me, just exploring where you can take those things, that in itself is a project. It's just like, what happens if you do this? What happens if you use this stitch? And what happens if you paint and then stitch on it? It's just, all of that is inspiring to me. It's just experimenting and exciting.
So basically your techniques evolve in that same way then, with some experimentation, some big dose of inspiration, and kind of give it a try.
Yeah. I think I really like seed stitch. I think seed stitch is a really underrated stitch. I think the things you can do with seeds, I can't remember which, is it Constance
Howard?
Yes, her.
Yeah, Constance Howard, yeah.
She said, learn a few stitches and learn to use them well, or words to that effect.
Something along those lines. Yes, that's right. We've killed that one, but everyone knows what we're talking about.
Claire, quotation expert, not. But it's so seed stitch and long and short stitch I just think they're really exciting stitches, and you can take them into so many different directions, and the blending that you can achieve with those stitches and sort of tonal values is incredible. But yeah, for me, I'm just kind of a fly by the seat of my needle kind of girl. And just kind of experiment. And I think everybody, you know, if you just play around, there's so much to be learned from the playing. If you take out the end goal and you take out money and, you know, I'm making this to make money, if you take all of that away and then set yourself free with the freedom of experimentation with your stitchery, then the world's your lobster, I think.
Indeed it is. Well, says me who drifted back into my backstitch habit over the weekend. Backstitch and French knots. Here we go again.
Oh, fabulous. I love a French knot. You can do loads with a French knot. I like backstitch.
I love it. So it was just like it's this piece inspired by kind of spring flowers, really. It's nothing revolutionary about it. It was just, but it's really nice just to sit there and not really even think about that, just to like let my mind drift onto some of the other things I'm doing. And here we are, you know, backstitch, crop. I just can't help doing it. It just happens. Backstitch.
But I think that's joyous. That the kind of the whole, you know, French knots are not easy to do, and I think that actually 2 stitches. And I do think doing spring flowers is revolutionary. I just think that the joy of creating something from thread and a bit of fabric is phenomenal. You look at stuff and you're like, did you make that with your hands? And it's just incredible.
Just sat there in the conservatory. It was my birthday last Friday, so I thought, right, I'm having a day off. And thank you. I'd had half a week off anyway, just working mornings. And you know, and I just so enjoyed. It was such a treat for me to actually sit down and this thing that was like started 2 years ago, barely. I thought, get that out, get on with it. And I pick something up and then I find myself I stare at it. I'll do like sewing, I'll do some 5 minutes of stitching and then I'll find myself staring at it and I drift off, staring at this thing. It doesn't matter what it is. I stare at patterns and then I drift off. Think, oh, right, come on. And then I'll do like a bit more and then I'll stare at it again. I was like, I must look like a complete loony while I'm doing it. But it was really was very, very relaxing.
And that's
nice
joy.
To get that out. It was. It certainly was. So given that you keep trying lots of, you know, you give things a try. So have you got anything to amuse us with, Claire, with regards to things that turned out as possibly a bit of a disaster? And what did you or do you learn from that or those experiences?
Well, every single piece I begin starts off as a disaster. It just does. I try and draw it. I'm not the best drafts person in the world. I'm not. And I struggle with that bit. Then I struggle with getting it onto fabric. Then I struggle with kind of making the idea in my head come to fruition.
To life.
And then I get creative block and then have some kind of, you know, existential crisis about my work. Then I get attacked by my ninja inner critic who will body slam me all the way through my piece, going, it's rubbish. Who do you think you are using a needle? No one's impressed, whatever. So I have that internal battle going on constantly where my inner critic's just not helpful. Just sits there going, it's rubbish. What even is that? No one will be able to tell. So I have that. And I have the challenge all the time of trying to stretch myself with, you know, different techniques for how you mount your work up or how you lay it up before you even begin stitching. You know, do you have a double fabric? So I've tied, there are cupboards full of like disasters where I've just gone, oh no, that's never going to work there. And the latest one was the bra one. And I persisted with that 3 weeks. I was like, I will make it work. 3 weeks. And in the end, I kind of admitted defeat and then just sat in a heap for about a week going, I don't even know what I think I'm doing. I'm going to go and get a proper job. Who do I think I am being an artist? So it's most of every single piece I do it's kind of like some kind of ninja boxing match that I most of the time win, but it's hard fought and I come out with scars and bruises and fingers with holes in from needles and stuff.
So you are very much snatching victory from the jaws of defeat then every time you create something.
every time And I'm amazed when I do something and I get to the end, I'm like, and it's always that last stitch, and I go, who knew? And it's always a shock, because the whole journey, even though it's been lovely and mindful and all the rest of it, there's been bits of it where I've just kind of gone, I just want to go to bed, I can't even deal. So it's when I get to the end, I'm like, thank goodness. But it's definitely challenging. I don't find none of it comes naturally. I'm not swanning around going, oh, this is fabulous, check me out. It's no, it's all of it is a challenge. But that's good.
Yes, and I'm sure everyone will find that pretty heartwarming as well, that it's not just ourselves that go through this endless process of wondering what on earth we're doing half the time. So, brilliant.
Oh, if I listened to my inner critic, I'd never get out of bed.
You'd do anything, would you? No, that's
just be sat in a heap covered in bits of material.
We've got to tell it to shut up. We've got to tell it to shut up and go away and get on with what we want to do. I missed out high points. Anything else that you wanted to add in there?
Only that I think it's important to have faith in yourself. And 2019 was the most extraordinary year I've ever had in my entire life. I had a hysterectomy because I was really sick. Within days of having that, really, the process had already begun creatively. But I was a finalist at the Knitting and Stitching Show. Then I was asked to be a columnist. Then I joined Sew. I had 2 exhibitions in London.
Wow. This was all in a period of a few months. That's amazing. Yeah.
And then I exhibited at the Bridport Arts Centre, which I'd always wanted to do. Yeah. And then coup of the year was exhibiting at the Thelma Holbert Gallery. I'd never been so proud. I think our lives take many twists and turns, and sometimes it's just about hanging in there and just keep believing that whatever it is in your heart and your soul that you really want to do, you just have to have courage sometimes, courage and hope. And if you have courage and hope, pretty much anything is possible. Keep on trucking. And if I can do it after having a hysterectomy and being up to me yin yang in the menopause, it's anyone can do it. Anyone can do it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And there's this. I say this with some of my good online friends. We have endless conversations, same kind of thing about our kind of online business development and so on. And there's this cartoon, I've seen it a few times, and it's basically this little guy in a cave with his pickaxe, and it shows you kind of like the tunnel that he's digging in, and you can see all this long tunnel, it kind of wraps around, and then you can see him just about to give up, and then there's like the rock, and then what we can see and he can't is like in another 3 feet is a big diamond or a pot of gold or something like that. And I just keep saying, we've got to keep digging because we're nearly at that diamond. Don't walk off. Don't be the person who's walked off. And 2 minutes more, you would have dug out that diamond. And that's always in my head, is that. So I'm really pleased, Claire, that you said that.
And also seeing it as an opportunity. I think I spent the first part of lockdown going, oh my God, it's all rubbish, I can't even. And now it's kind of like, how can I use this time productively? How can I, make new connections? How can I challenge myself? How can I create new work? How can I, find different ways of putting my work out there? I don't know if it was Confucius who said it, but they don't have any sign or word for crisis. Their sign is opportunity. That's what they have for crisis. There is no such thing as a crisis. It's just an opportunity to learn and learn something different or develop a new way of being. So I'm trying to channel my inner, it's an opportunity to challenge myself and learn something different. Apart from the 3 o'clock in the morning when I'm absolutely freaking out eating chocolate. Like, oh my God, the world's ending. But most of the time I try and stay out of that part of my head.
Yeah, we don't want to be in that mode, do we, for very long. So I know it's difficult to think about kind of future plans, etc. But do you have any things that have already been organised for ages and haven't been cancelled as yet? What are you aiming for, Claire? I guess is probably a better question at the moment.
I think everything that I was supposed to do is cancelled.
Yeah.
So I think I'd like to do some collaborative stuff with people. I keep having this idea about doing something a bit like the Bay Tapestry, but that is just about stitched art in its own right. I do get annoyed that, a lot of art establishments, when you apply to be part of it, even like the Royal Academy, there's no textile section.
It's beyond ridiculous now, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's across the board, that stuff. That, so I would like to do a really big collaborative piece with a group of other artists that says stitched art is art, and this is what we do, and this is how amazing our work is. So that would be a great thing to do if I could.
Fabulous.
Get myself together to organise it. I don't think it would be that difficult. You just need people on board.
Yeah.
So if anyone's up for that, let me know.
There's plenty around, that's for sure.
But yeah, and just keep developing my work to maybe organise an online exhibition of lots of people's work, maybe on my website. Develop the ideas that I've already got ongoing with Stitchery stuff, the project woman and the communication stuff. Someone suggested that I maybe do some online tutorials.
Oh, yeah.
I think that would be a bonkers ride for everybody. So that could happen. I don't know. So maybe that will be a thing. I don't know what people would want to learn from me, but I might give that a go. But there's lots of exciting things, and I think it's just kind of, I don't want to be one of those people that's just marking time for the world to be open again. No, I want to be proactive and develop stuff. I said before this started about Redbubble, that's quite exciting. I think there's lots of ways to rethink how I work, and I guess that the immediate future will be about developing my practice and working out how that's going to look long term, because this isn't forever.
No.
It might be for a while, but it's not forever. No. And I think it's an opportunity to develop stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned about online courses there. With my other hat on, that's something I do a great deal of. I create online courses on things like MailChimp or most of the kind of online tools and apps that we use in our day-to-day online businesses. I create training courses on that. And I've actually had 2 or 3 textile artists over the last kind of 6 or 7 weeks reach out to me and say, I don't really know where to start. I want to, put some stuff online, because as ever, you all know how you teach your particular style or subject. And most people are teaching in some shape, way or form anyway. But getting all the online technology stuff sorted out is a different ball game altogether. I've been working online 10 years. I've helped clients all over the world with stuff like that. So, this is something that I'm looking to do more of for myself as well. So if anybody wants any guidance or help, I shall be something that I've never said I do all this sort of thing, but I'm saying it now.
There's textile artists all over the country and all over the world now going, duly noted. I shall write that down. Thank you very much. No, but that's brilliant, because people don't know.
No,
I don't know.
No.
And it's like, I haven't got a clue. And
that's what I've spent 10 years looking at.
And it's challenging. So everybody will be after you now. Be like, how do I do it? Tell me how.
Right. Well, Claire, we've blown our time budget totally today, but never mind.
It's been an absolute joy.
It's been brilliant talking to you, really. We could keep on going forever, I think, as well.
It's been fabulous, Susan. Thank you so much. I've absolutely loved it and had an absolute ball.
Brilliant. So have I. It's been really wonderful speaking to you, Claire. So everybody, if you're not already following Claire, then go and find her. All her links are on her Stitchery Stories episode. Go and read her column as well, because it's very amusing and really nice read for certain. There we are. Enjoy as best you can your lockdowns, everybody. And if you're listening to this in about 2 years' time, then everyone will have forgotten how awful it all was. So there we are. Look forward and have some fun where we can find it. That's my motto. All right. Thank you very much, Claire. It's just been absolutely brilliant speaking to you, and take care, everybody. And we'll be back soon with another one. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, then please join the Stitchery Stories fan club so you can get an email when a new episode is released. It's a quick and easy way of listening and of keeping up with any news and information around this podcast. Please visit stitcherystories.com. Of course, you can listen to Stitchery Stories on plenty of podcast apps at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify and plenty more besides. You can also ask your smart speaker to play Stitchery Stories podcast too. But wherever you listen, why not leave us a rating and a review to encourage other people to listen too? I very much appreciate you taking the time to do that for me. So that is the end of our Stitchery story for today. Keep stitching, keep smiling, and keep creating your very own Stitchery stories.